The ninja. Born of a 400-year-old tradition. Trained in the most exquisite subtleties of combat. The ninja must be as wise as he is all-powerful. For if ever a ninja gives himself over to the dark side of his art, the destruction is terrifying and absolute. Revenge of the Ninja.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is your host. My name is Chris, aka Chris the Ninja, for all my social media handles, aka the Raging Ninja. And I do want to welcome you here to the second episode of the Raging Ninja Show. So yes, again, just thank you for anybody that is listening to me for coming to check out the channel. I do appreciate it. I would also love for you to follow me, I should say, out on my blog here, the Raging Ninja, .blogspot.com. The link for that is below in the description for the video here. And this channel on YouTube here is basically just an extension of that blog, and this is kind of going to be my forum to just kind of expand out, do more things than I could do on the written blog itself. So today, second episode of the show here, I'm going to be talking about some new and upcoming horror movies, as this is the season, 'tis the season to be spooky right now. Of course, Halloween is a few weeks out from us here, but just the fall time is definitely a great time to be cooped up, cozy, stream or rent, watch some horror movies, scary thrillers, things like that. It's a great time for it. So I'm going to be looking at a couple of new titles like that I'm going to be looking forward to, and I do plan on checking out here. And just a little bit of background and history on some of them. And I am hoping that if you are interested in these movies as well, that this will kind of be a nice little show for you. So I'll try not to take too much of your time. But so the first movie coming out here actually next week is going to be Halloween. Now, Halloween is going to be it's such a complicated timeline with this franchise, man. So this movie, Halloween 2018, is actually going to be a direct sequel. So this is going to be part 2 to the original Halloween, which was made back in 1978 with John Carpenter directing. So classic. So this movie coming out next week is going to be a direct sequel to that classic. Now this actually marks this will be now the third time that the series has kind of ignored continuity. Second time, actually, technically. Yes, this will be the second time that the series has ignored continuity. So, give you a little history lesson here. So Halloween comes out in 1978. Like I said, very watershed kind of moment as far as horror films are concerned. The film is very successful, and is one of the movies that's credited with sparking the slasher genre of films. And, it was very popular, like I said, did very well at the box office. So naturally, what comes next? A sequel. So they put out a sequel in 1981, Halloween 2. And Halloween 2, it's interesting because it's such a different movie from the first one, and yet very much like the same one. So it did have a different director, Rick Rosenthal, who directed that one, as John Carpenter stepped down as director. But he did stay on. He and his wife, I believe at the time, Deborah Hill, they stayed on as writers for that movie. And then he ended up still being involved with the project. Like, I think there are a couple of scenes that he did end up directing himself, and he kind of had some creative control over the project. So his influence is still kind of there, and the movie itself is very much stylistically feels like Halloween does. Like, it imitates the style of the original pretty well for most of the movie here. But it's a different movie because in the time that the first one was released until the second one actually came out, like I said, the slasher boom kind of started at that point. So you had all these kind of really gory, low budget kind of rip-offs and inspirations from Halloween and everything, including the most famous rip-off of them all, Friday the 13th, which the director of the original Friday the 13th, Sean S. Cunningham, actually will admit that, yeah, he got the idea for Friday the 13th, like, after the success of Halloween. Like, he even made it on a day of the year, like Halloween, Friday the 13th. So it was a very big influence on the genre, right? So Halloween 2 comes out, and then, like I said, in the wake of the release of the original, you had all these kind of gorier movies and things that came out. And Halloween, the first one, while it is violent, there is definitely violence in the movie. Michael Myers does not, play around with kittens and pillows and things. Like, he is killing people in the movie, but it's not explicitly gory or anything. Like, I don't think there's really much blood or anything that's shown in it. And the kills themselves are fairly tame. Like, he doesn't really, just pack up, dismember anybody or anything like that. But it's still, it has a lot of suspense, a lot of kind of effectiveness with the kills that it does. Like, it has a sense of brutality about it, but it's not it's not overly, like, bloody and disgusting with its kills or anything. So, like I said, but Halloween 2 definitely ups the blood, ups the gore a little bit, because, as I said, in the meantime, like, all these imitators and things that come out, so it ended up competing with them. Like, it ended up, these movies came out after that are imitating the original, and it ends up trying to compete with them at their own game, which is kind of one of the things that kind of holds the movie back a little bit, sort of. But I still think it's a good movie, and definitely is one of the best horror sequels I think that's ever been made. A lot of people would think that, and at the very least, it's a good, solid horror movie. If at worst, it's a solid sequel to the original. And then, so then Halloween 3 comes out, right? Which has absolutely nothing to do with the Michael Myers storyline. So there's no Michael Myers, there's no Dr. Loomis, no Laurie Strode, nobody else mentioned from those movies. It exists in kind of this own alternate, almost kind of universe, because the original idea with that, when spoilers, I'm sorry, this is going to be kind of a spoiler heavy episode. So with the ending of Halloween 2 supposedly being the bookend for the Michael Myers story, he and Dr. Loomis blow up at the end in the hospital. That was supposed to be the definitive end for him, for Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis. So with that happening, Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they wanted to turn the Halloween series into an anthology. So each following installment would have a different new, creepy horror theme that would be different from the last. It would have different characters, different stories, different things like that. And so Halloween 3 comes out, does not do as well as they hoped, and it kind of pauses the franchise a little bit until 1988, because Halloween 3 came out in 1983, so it kind of stops until 1988, and then they decided to bring Michael Myers back, and basically, so what happens after that? So there's Halloween 4, which is, again, it's an okay movie to me. It's an alright sequel, I think. It's a decent little body count film, if nothing else. Halloween 5 and 6, so Halloween, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, so parts 5 and 6, they are terrible. Halloween H2O is, I had a lot more love for it as a child. I watched it, me and my best friend and roommate actually watched it not too long ago. I want to say a few months ago, something like that. We ended up watching it, and it was both, it was a, popular movie when we were both kids, and we watched it again, and it just didn't have the same, effect as it did. There's a little bit of nostalgia, kind of tied to that one. Because like I said, it was a really popular movie. That came out in 1998, and it did well at the box office, things like that. And it was a big deal because Jamie Lee Curtis was returning to the first time in 20 years. And this brings me to the first time. So this is the first time that they ignore the continuity. So Halloween H2O pretends that Halloween's part 4, 5, and 6 never existed. It basically goes from, so there's Halloween 2, and then there's Halloween H2O. That's the continuity that it works off of. And so like I said, so that's the first time they, just pulled we're going to pretend that didn't happen. Like, we're going to need you guys to not acknowledge those movies because they didn't happen. So that's the first time it happened. And then Halloween Resurrection came out after that. 2002 is another terrible movie. And then in 2007 and 2009, so in 2007, we got the Rob Zombie, Hellbilly remake of Halloween, which I actually, it's not a great movie, but it holds a place in my heart, for a distinct reason. That was the very first movie I went to see after turning 18, and I could buy my own ticket, to a rated R movie, and that was the first movie I saw, was Rob Zombie's Halloween. So I mean, the movie itself it's solid. I mean, it was the movie that was tasked with creating a backstory for Michael Myers, because in the original Halloween, I mean, the sequels do it. They try to flesh him out and give him all these motivations and tie him to this cult and all this other stuff. But the original vision for Michael Myers is very little backstory. He kills his sister when he's a little kid, and then he grows up and still wants to kill people, and that's kind of it. They kind of just leave it very ambiguous with things. And even the fact that if he's a supernatural entity is kind of left it's a lot more apparent by each successive sequel, that he is kind of this undying, unfeeling, emotionless killing machine. But in the first movie, it's kind of, it's kind of ambiguous. He looks like a normal man, walks around like a normal man. He does take a number of bullets at the end of the original for his trouble, and Dr. Loomis goes to see the body, and of course he's gotten up and gone. But even then, in that situation, it's like it's possible he could have just walked off somewhere and just bled to death, after the movie ended or something like that. Like, it very much kind of leaves it up to interpretation exactly what he is. And, like I said, with each successive sequel, they attempted to put more backstory and all this kind of nonsense into it that didn't really need. And so Rob Zombie's Halloween takes on the duty of giving him almost kind of this tragic backstory where he comes up in a totally broken household and just has parental figures and siblings and things like that they're just no good to him in any way, bullied excessively in school, and it very much goes kind of like, you see, this is why he turned out to be a killer, because the kid couldn't catch a break. And I don't know. I guess I give them credit for trying to expand on the mythos and kind of add this dimension. But at the same time, to me, I think what works best for him are those kind of stark details, like just that you have a little bit that you know about it, and then you don't know anything else. I think that does work a little bit better for the character. It's almost kind of like getting off topic a little bit here, but it's almost kind of like the Joker to me. Like, we have these all these stories that kind of try to explain the Joker's origin and things like that, and I like it more when it's ambiguous, when you don't really know like why that he became this way. And as a matter of fact, in the first Halloween, one of the reasons that he is the way he is, it makes no sense. You know what I mean? He comes from a nice like suburban home. It doesn't delve into a whole lot, but it doesn't seem like he has a abnormal childhood. Like, both parents are there, and he seems to have a pretty normal upbringing, which is why it's so perplexing that he just one night gets up, stabs his sister to death. It's one of the things that makes it so unsettling, because there doesn't seem to be any semblance of a motive outside of just is he crazy? So again, I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for that movie, but it's not particularly any great. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which of course is not related to the other Halloween 2 that I just mentioned earlier, the 1981 version. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is terrible. That movie's just bad. And not just in like I said, the first one's not that great, but I think it does have its merits. The second one is just bad. And was another time that the franchise was kind of just dead for a little bit. So now we, almost 10 years after that movie was released, we are getting another Halloween, which is going to essentially be the real Halloween 3, quote unquote, and Jamie Lee Curtis is returning yet again. So it seems like you can only get her to be in a Halloween movie every 20 years, roughly. And it is apparently is doing pretty good, because I think it's already premiered for like critics and stuff. And I've heard pretty good things, so I am pretty excited to see how that's going to be, see where that's going to go. And I am definitely looking forward to checking it out and just seeing, how they're going to do this, how they're going to just connect it back to the first two, the original installment, and see what they've done for you know, how Michael, like, what he's been doing all this time. I mean, he apparently starts the movie still locked up, and just seeing how they're gonna go and, you know, put a new fresh twist on it. I am excited about that. So in addition to that, we also have another kind of follow up to a classic horror movie. It's going to be a I think how it's being dubbed is that it's going to be a tribute to the original, and it's going to be Suspiria. So for anybody that doesn't know about Suspiria, that is, the original was an Italian horror movie that was directed by Dario Argento back in 1977, I believe it came out, and basically tells the story of a dancer, an American ballet dancer, who goes to like this, you know, this like prestigious dance school, I believe that's in Germany, and she slowly realizes and finds out that the dance school is not all it's cracked up to be, and that it's actually a front for something a lot more sinister, darker, and yeah, like, and that's what that's about. A lot of people hail it because for anybody that doesn't know, if you're somebody that's really into the genre and, you know, you're kind of a horror fanatic and things like that, you most likely do know who Dario Argento is. If not, he is kind of one of the more acclaimed horror directors of the past, you know, few decades and things like that. And he's made a number of horror movies, and Suspiria is often looked at as kind of like one of his best, if not the best. So there, and I actually have not seen it yet, not all the way through. I've seen pieces of it before, but I've never actually sat down and checked out the entire thing. So I do plan on watching that. I plan on getting the original getting a viewing in on that before I do go see the remake, because I do believe that's set up to come out here at the end of October, like around the 26th, 27th, something like that. And yeah, and I've seen the trailer for the remake. It looks like it's going to be very good. The cast and crew that are working on it, they do have a number of really good names involved. I know Tilda Swinton is going to be in it here, and I love Tilda Swinton. And it really looks like they have put a lot of effort and time into the project. Like, it doesn't seem like it's just a remake for remake's sake. It really looks like the writer and director and the cast and crew involved have, you know, they have something to do. Like, it doesn't look like it's just going to be a pointless cash grab or anything like that. And the movie itself, looking up the details on it here, is supposed to be about 150 minutes long, and which is really long for a horror movie here. And I don't know. I'm excited to see what it is. I've heard pretty good reviews about it as well. The first one is only about 90 or so minutes long. So this one being a lot longer, I'm anxious to kind of see what they're going to do, their new take and new spin on things. And yeah, I mean, it looks like it's really going to be a really good kind of probably a slow burning, you know, horror film that's really going to probably make you think, make you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, make you feel uncomfortable more so than just out and out terrified, what have you. But I'm definitely excited to check that out. And then the last movie that I want to talk about here is going to be Apostle, which has actually just premiered on Netflix as of yesterday. And it is being directed, well, it was directed here by Gareth Evans, who, if people don't know, directed both of the Raid movies, so the Raid Redemption and the Raid 2. So he is he's the mastermind behind the Raid franchise. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna check out the movie, and I'm pretty sure he's done good things with it. Like he's a really good director and has a good eye for detail. And both if anybody has seen both of the Raid movies, he really is able to fill scenes with a lot of kinetic energy. Does really good camera work. And just has a really good sense of kind of space and setting up shots. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to transfer that into the thriller and horror film realm pretty well. So I am anxious to see that. I do want him to give me the Raid 3. I have been waiting for that for a long time. So hopefully after he does this, maybe works on another project, he can give the people what they want. But yeah, so Apostle is a horror movie that stars Dan Stevens. And if anybody is if anybody is a fan of Downton Abbey, I believe Dan Stevens was on that show. And also, there's a movie that I love called The Guest, and Dan Stevens is the star of that movie, and he's great in that movie. And that's also a fantastic little movie I recommend people check out. It's kind of, has a horror-ish vibe, but it's more so just a thriller movie, but it's really good. It's very much kind of the just kind of, basically he plays this guy who, seems all nice and great and everything, and then it slowly, kind of deteriorates and stuff starts happening. So yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much, but yeah, I definitely recommend checking him out in that. He was great. He's also, if anybody has seen the live action Beauty and the Beast movie that came out not too long ago, he is the Beast in that movie. And so the movie Apostle is a period piece, and it's about a man whose sister was apparently kidnapped by this dangerous cult, and he goes looking to rescue her. And we all know that is probably not going to work out the way he thinks it is. And yeah, and that's basically what's going on. This movie is also another longer horror movie. It's over 2 hours long. It's about 130 minutes. And so it'll probably be another kind of slower burning, less focus on how many people are dying on screen, and more so just about being kind of an uncomfortable and unnerving experience. And I haven't read any reviews or anything like that for it as of yet. Like I said, it did just premiere as of yesterday on Netflix, so I am excited about checking that one out as well. And yeah, like I said, I really like Gareth Evans. I have confidence in him and his ability to direct, so I think that is going to be pretty good as well. And that is actually going to wrap it up for me here.